New questions tonight about the reach and influence of white supremacists following the midterm elections. While the fate of the Senate seat in Florida hangs in the balance, Nazi sympathizers are cheering that the Senate will remain in Republicans' hands. They see this as a win for President Trump and a means to push their race war forward and its agenda of hate. CNN Sarah Seidner has the story now.
It was a meme for the midterms on a website visited more than 2.5 million times a month. Us if we lose, it read, depicting white men ready for war, followed by them if we win, showing Jews being led to their death.
They're begging their followers to go out and find ways to get Republicans in office because they believe it'll be easier for these policies to sail through.
There was a big day yesterday.
When President Trump celebrated the Senate victory, so did white supremacists. This changed history, neo-Nazi Andrew Anglin said on his site, The Daily Stormer, which is the most widely read neo-Nazi website in America. This is a race war, period. They also reveled in the re-election of Congressman Steve King, who has a history of making racist remarks, like in this 2017 anti-immigration tweet saying, "We can't restore our civilization with somebody else's babies," or his unsubstantiated claim about immigrants crossing the U.S.-Mexico border.
They weigh 130 pounds and they've got calves the size of cantaloupes because they're hauling 75 pounds of marijuana across the desert.
If last night was a referendum on Steve King's white nationalism, as the Democrats were trying to frame it, then white nationalism won, Anglin wrote on his site. Both King and President Trump vehemently deny they are racist or enable white supremacists. Trump pushed back at a recent press conference when asked if the Republican Party was seen as supporting white nationalists because of his rhetoric.
What do you make of that?
I don't believe it.
But purposefully or not, the president speaks a language racists and neo-Nazis embrace, like his habit of linking immigrants to crime.
They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists.
The Government Accountability Office says right-wing extremists are responsible for the vast majority of deadly terror attacks in the U.S. since 9/11.
I was involved in the movement at the very dawn of the internet.
Tony McAleer is a former skinhead. He says white supremacists look for any sign of approval from politicians in power.
The whole goal of people like me back in the day was to mainstream the idea.
It doesn't take an overt slur for these individuals to basically become emboldened.
Take the president's threat to tell the military to consider rocks being thrown by migrants as guns being fired.
When they throw rocks like they did at the Mexico military and police, I say, consider it a rifle.
Those comments cheered online by racist trolls. Hopefully they throw stones, they write. The Daily Stormer's webmaster, Andrew Arnheimer, is clear about their purpose.
We are trying to make a racist army.
White nationalists swooned at how the president described himself.
And I am a nationalist.
Translation, he's one of us.
It doesn't mean necessarily that he's saying that. It's just that he hasn't said anything to convince them that he disagrees with them.
Critics of Trump's rhetoric believe his reluctance to rein in the radical side of his base has only empowered them. Their hateful agenda gaining speed.
So disgusting. Sarah, thank you. Incredible report.
Thank you.
Sarah joins us now. This isn't just dog whistles, right? And you have spoken with several Nazis, KKK members. What are they saying about the president's rhetoric?
He's their best hope. He's their great white hope. Now, those who don't like him, which you often hear, oh, they don't actually like him. They actually say bad things about him. Usually it's because he doesn't go far enough. He's not racist enough. He has Jewish family members. Those things are the things that bother the neo-Nazis or the KKK members. But the truth of the matter is that in talking to them, many of them, those who are still in the organizations and those who have left, will say to me that when they hear his words, it sounds exactly like the same words they use in their group settings when they talk about especially immigration, the browning of America. That phrase is used a lot. So to hear him say, I'm a nationalist, they were bursting with pride because to everyone who heard that, it was, I'm a white nationalist. The president said he didn't know anything about that. He hadn't heard of white nationalists or however he put it. But that is how it was read by almost every white nationalist out there.
So let's talk about this threat of white nationalism. Law enforcement missed the mark, underestimated?
I talked to several FBI agents who are out of the FBI now, but who infiltrated some of these groups. And their answer is yes. What has happened with law enforcement, they went after 9/11, and rightly so. They started going after, okay, what is the biggest threat? And to them, right after 9/11, it was Islamic terrorism, period. Fast forward, and if you look at the numbers from the Government Accountability Office itself, there are more attacks by far right-wing groups than there have been by anyone who is Muslim. If you just look at the simple numbers, law enforcement has really missed the mark. And how have they missed it? If you look at Charlottesville, some of the people who showed up there had criminal histories already. Some of those same people were allowed to go to Charlottesville, act violent, leave, right? Leave. They weren't, some of them weren't arrested, and show up at the next rally or the next rally. The organizers of that got to keep showing up. If those had have been Muslim groups that had been waving an ISIS flag, one of the FBI agents told me it would be a whole different ballgame.
So, yes, the numbers are there. When you read the numbers, you give the truth, people still get upset because they don't want to hear it. They don't believe, when you talk about terrorism and radicals, they don't want to believe that it's actually white Americans, men, who can be responsible for most of it. What is that?
I think in this country, and you're no stranger to this, there is still a sense of trying to protect your own. And if you look at the way that this country was built, there's a sense of you can't say that about good, solid Americans. But these Americans are targeting people of color, they're targeting Muslims, they're targeting Latinos, they're targeting blacks, they're targeting anybody, they're targeting gays at times, but some of them are also targeting law enforcement because they don't believe law enforcement is doing enough to stop the browning of America. They are dangerous, period. Ask anybody who has been investigating these guys as part of their career, and they will tell you they are truly a danger to this society, and they need to be held to account.
Great reporting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Well, we've got a lot more to talk about. Scott Jennings is here, Nina Turner, Rick Wilson. We're going to dig into it next. White nationalists are cheering Republican victories in the midterms. The question is why? Does it have anything to do with President Trump? Does it come down to him? Here to discuss, Scott Jennings, Nina Turner, Rick Wilson. Rick is the author of Everything Trump Touches Dies. Good evening. So you heard Sarah's piece, right? You were sitting here for much of it, right? This is for Scott, not Rick, sorry, for Scott. What do you think? They're cheering on Republicans in the midterm, the victories. What does this say about your party?
Well, first of all, I reject these people. I don't want their support. I don't want Republicans to be associated with them. I think in many cases, these folks try to attach themselves to the people who are in power because they want attention, and they want to make it seem like that somebody is championing their cause. Well, I'm here to tell you that's not true. Nobody that I know is championing their cause. They want to make it seem that way, but I don't think it's true, and I think every Republican has an obligation to reject these people at every possible turn. Because what these folks espouse has no place on our political spectrum, right, left, whatever you want to call it. These people don't register for me on our politics.
What did you think of what Sarah said about? She said when she speaks to Nazis and these white nationalists, they say they hear themselves in the president and what he says in some of these politicians.
Yeah, I think they are.
It's the exact language they use in their meetings.
Yeah, I know. I think these people are in some cases telling themselves stories like, oh, finally, maybe somebody sort of gets us. And then she said others don't think he's gone far enough, or they don't like it that he has Jewish family members. I think these people are very demented individuals, and they are constantly groping for relevance, and they would love to attach themselves to anyone in power, but it doesn't really matter as far as Republicans go. And this goes for the president on down. We all have a responsibility. Denounce, deny, and do not give these people any quarter in our politics.
Would you like to see the president do more denunciation and not say nationalist?
Yes, I would absolutely love to see the president denounce these people. Absolutely, at every possible turn.
Let me bring some other folks in. So, Rick, the Southern Poverty Law Center says that white nationalists begging their followers to put Republicans in office. Is that because of President Trump? Does he have anything to do with it?
Look, Donald Trump has given these people so many nods, winks, nudges, rub their feet under the table at dinner. He's given them every signal in the world that he is at least sympathetic to them, that he at least comes from a similar sort of feeling about, the type of people who should be considered Americans, and the type of people who, come from the blank hole countries versus Norway. This is not a guy who's been subtle about this. This is the guy who was the architect of the Central Park Five. He was the architect of he was the biggest promoter of the overtly racist birther scam. This is a man who for a very, very long time has done everything he could to tell these people with a wink and a nudge, I'm going to make this country safe from the dangerous brown people in the caravan coming to kill you. He led off his campaign with a racist blurt about the Mexicans are sending their rapists and drug dealers here. This is a man who couldn't come out for weeks on end and fully denounce David Duke. When he finally did, he used the following phrase. He goes, "I disavow, okay?" I mean, this is not a man who has been clear enough about this at any point. Teleprompter Trump, who reads the occasional thing Kellyanne writes for him, is not the real Donald Trump. The real Donald Trump is the one who says that people from Haiti and Africa and other places where they happen to be brown are from S-hole countries. So I'm sorry, I have very little pity for Donald Trump in this one, because he recognizes what he's doing. He plays this game to stoke a particular segment of the base, and it's an ugly, ugly behavior for a president to engage in.
Nina, a former skinhead says, and you saw them in Sarah's report, right? You heard some folks saying similar things before. This skinhead says that white supremacists look for any sign of approval from politicians in power. So I'm wondering if they must be seeing it in President Trump, and is it all about votes?
No, it's obvious that they are, and amen to everything that Rick had to say. We can have no tolerance for this kind of behavior in America. We are supposed to be a nation of progress, not regress. And what President Trump is doing with all of his rhetoric is taking us backwards. And he should stand up post-haste. I mean, Don, he can come on your show tonight, President Trump, because we know you watching, and to denounce this kind of behavior in America. It is flat out wrong. It's wrong for our country. And, the thing that Scott said about all GOP, all of the members of the Republican Party have a moral obligation to stand up loud and proud against this kind of behavior and this kind of activity. It is diminishing us as a country, and it is dangerous. People are actually losing their lives because of this. And, the symbolic nature, I mean, there was a time in this country where we had the colored water fountain and the white water fountain. Well, the president is bringing that back symbolically. And we see the delineation, the difference, the division in this country, and his rhetoric is stoking it. They have found their savior, so to speak, and they see that in the president. He has to know that.
Okay. Obviously, Scott disagrees. I saw it there. Listen, I got to...
Scott disagrees with that?
No. He disagrees with what you said. He just shook his head no. In our next block, listen, it's going to be shorter, but I just want to say, Scott, why is it so tough for, when I asked Sarah this question, when you look at the numbers here, why is it so tough for people to accept that when you look at these sort of attacks, it's white men, and even more so than Islamic terrorism? And you get the criticism, but all you have to do is look at the facts and look at the numbers. Something should be done about it. Like, we should take this seriously.
Well, I agree. We should take it seriously. I don't think it's mutually exclusive. We don't have to take one seriously over the other. I think the American government, since 9/11, has done a great job.
Both are an issue, but when you say one, it is complete outrage. If you say Islamic terrorism, nobody gets mad. Oh my, we got it. And every time something happens, was it related to terror? And usually people think terror is something that relates to a Muslim. But this is domestic terror that doesn't relate to Muslims. This is white Americans doing it. Well, why is it so hard to say that and to own that?
Well, I don't know that it's hard to acknowledge it. I mean, when these attacks happen and we see it on the news, we see the law enforcement move in and take care of it. I mean, it's clear who's doing it, and it's clear who the culprits are. I just think we've been so focused on Islamic terrorism in this country since 9/11 that has taken up most of the space for the word terrorism. But there are absolutely people in this country who wish us harm, and I don't think they're political actors. I think they are terrorists, but that doesn't make them political actors as a part of a party.
I got to get to the break. Stay with me, and we're going to talk about something a U.S. sitting senator made a terrible joke about public hanging. We'll talk about that. A sitting U.S. senator refusing to apologize for joking about a public hanging in a state that has a history of lynchings. I can't believe that I'm about to say this in 2018. I'm talking about Mississippi Republican Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith. She is seen in this video posted to Twitter praising a cattle rancher and thanking him for his support. Wow. Hyde-Smith is still fighting for her Senate seat, and it's worth mentioning that her opponent is an African American. She is facing former Democratic Congressman Mike Espy in a runoff election on November 27th because neither received 50% of the vote. Well, Hyde-Smith responded with outrage over her remark in a statement saying this. She said, in a comment on November 2nd, I referred to accepting an invitation to speaking engagement. In referencing the one who invited me, I use an exaggerated expression of regard, and any attempt to turn this into a negative connotation is ridiculous. But today, at a news conference with Mississippi Governor Phil Bryant, reporters asked questions about the comment, and I just want you to hear how it all went down.
We put out a statement yesterday, and we stand by that statement.
Could you expand on it then, why you said it, what you meant by it, and why people in the state should not see it as offensive?
We put out the statement yesterday, and it's available, and we stand by that statement.
Senator, are you familiar with Mississippi's history of lynchings?
I put out a statement yesterday, and that's all I'm going to say about it.
Governor Phil Bryant, that it shouldn't be viewed with a negative connotation. Could you at least explain how it could be
yesterday, and we stand by the statement, and that's all I'm going to say about it.
Is that phrasing in your everyday lingo, in your vocabulary? Do you use
I put out a statement yesterday.
Governor, you appointed her as a United States Senator. You have a huge black population that are looking for answers on why she used that kind of language. And you have worked to try to make it known that Mississippi no longer has that past. When you're hearing her say, I put out a statement yesterday, and that's all
I think she is, she's certainly addressing the fact that she has put out a statement. I can tell you all of us in public life have said things on occasion that we could have phrased better. When you make as many speeches as we do in public life, that does occur. But I know this woman and I know her heart. I knew it when I appointed her, I know it now. She meant no offense by that statement. There was nothing in her heart of ill will. Now, in a political campaign, people can make anything you say what they want it to say. They can spin it. They can go on social media and accuse you of all sorts of things.
Governor,
she feels certain that, I believe, I won't speak for her, but that her statement spoke to it. Absolutely, we have been sensitive to race relations in this state. I brought the President of the United States here to open the Civil Rights Museum. And African-American leadership that would fail to even come to the event because the President of the United States was there. Today I talked about the genocide of over 20 million African-American children. You see, in my heart, I am confused about where the outrage is at about 20 million African-American children that have been aborted. No one wants to say anything about that. No one wants to talk about that.
And what are we going to do with this?
Wow. Okay, before I get back to you guys, is it possible the press conference made things even worse for her? I mean, why couldn't she apologize? Why couldn't she just admit it was a very unfortunate word choice? Mississippi has the highest number of lynchings in the nation between 1882 and 1968, according to the NAACP. I mean, Nina, go on.
You hit the nail on the head, Don. That's just exactly 4,800 lynchings. 73% of those were African Americans. This wasn't an unfortunate. This wasn't no slip up. This woman said what she said, and she won't even apologize. Nina Simone, Don, you know where I'm going. Her song, everybody knows about Mississippi, goddamn. That was the words in her song. This woman is unfit to serve in the U.S. Senate. It is a travesty.
Alabama's got me so upset. Tennessee made me lose my rest.
Yes, but everybody knows about Mississippi, goddamn.
Yeah, go ahead,
yes.
Scott.
Yeah, I mean, it was thoughtless, careless in this time when we have such, well, at any time, but it's particularly right now, politicians of any level, U.S. Senate on down, have to be more careful and understand their words have ramifications beyond, you know, I mean, it was pointed out by the governor, you know, anybody can take your words and blow. Well, yeah, that's the point. I mean, anybody can be recording it and it can go all over the world. Yeah. So I take them at their word about what's in her heart, but you can't be so thoughtless and careless because it hurts people and hurts the situation.
Rick?
If what was in her heart, though, was innocent, she would have shown some sense of repentance about it, some moment of awareness, some scintilla of understanding that the arc of history includes a very ugly chapter in Mississippi, where an awful lot of people associated the words public hanging with a certain late-night pointy white hat social club that did terrible, terrible, murderous damage throughout our country for a very long time. If she had had some sort of sense of that, just some fraction of goodness in her, where she would have come out and said, you know, I spoke so wrongly and cruelly. This was an idiotic thing on my part. I will do my very best to be mindful and to listen to what I'm saying more closely and to reflect the better angels of our nature in this state. But unfortunately, she said, I put out a statement yesterday 14 times in this press conference, and that comes across as essentially the Trumpian stiff arm.
Yeah. Thank you all. So much to talk about, but we're out of time. Thanks very much, everyone, for watching. Our coverage continues.